At 1:07 in the morning, Norah Caldwell stood barefoot in the kitchen of her Brookline home. She was 34 weeks pregnant. She was holding the wedding ring Ethan had placed on her finger 6 years earlier. Rain tapped against the tall windows overlooking the dark Boston streets. Her husband stood across from her, in a charcoal suit. His Mercedes key was still in one hand. His Rolex showed that he had come home nearly 4 hours later than promised. Norah noticed the faint scent of perfume on his coat. It was not hers. She had smelled it before. Tonight, she finally stopped pretending. She asked, "Are you still seeing Madison?" Ethan froze. For 3 seconds, he said nothing. Then he loosened his tie. He said, "Norah, it's after 1. You're exhausted," she replied. "That wasn't my question." His jaw tightened. She could see the familiar calculation behind his eyes. It was the same look he used in boardrooms when a client asked something he didn't want to answer. He said, "Norah, your blood pressure has already been high. We shouldn't do this tonight." She almost smiled, even now. He was trying to make her reaction the problem. Her hand moved over the curve of her stomach. Their son shifted beneath her palm. She asked, "Are you still sleeping with her?" Ethan looked toward the windows. That was the answer. Norah swallowed. She had imagined this moment hundreds of times. In some versions, she screamed. In others, she threw his phone against the wall. Sometimes she begged him to remember their marriage. She wanted him to remember the miscarriage they had survived together. She thought of the nursery upstairs, the little boy who would arrive before Christmas. But standing there now, Norah felt strangely calm. Ethan finally spoke. He said, "It's complicated." Norah interrupted, "No. Do you love her?" He rubbed both hands over his face and said, "I don't know." Those 3 words hurt more than yes. A yes would have given her something solid to hate. "I don't know" meant Ethan had been willing to gamble their marriage. He didn't even know what he wanted instead. Norah slowly removed her wedding ring. Ethan stared. He asked, "What are you doing?" She stepped forward and placed the ring in his palm. His fingers closed around it automatically. She whispered, "Go back to her." His face changed. He said, "Norah, stop." "I'm not stopping anything," she replied. "You're pregnant. I know. You can't just walk away," he told her. Norah looked at him. She said, "I'm not the one who walked away, Ethan. I'm just the first one willing to admit you already did." He opened his mouth, but no words came. Norah turned toward the staircase. He called out her name. She stopped. For one terrible second, Ethan thought she might turn around. He hoped she would cry and ask him to choose her. She didn't. She said, "I spent months trying to save a marriage you were quietly leaving. I won't spend another night competing for my own husband." Then she walked upstairs. Ethan remained beneath the soft kitchen lights. He was holding her ring. Beneath his shock, something shameful appeared. Relief. He thought Norah had finally made his decision for him. He had no idea what would happen by morning. The quiet woman walking away from him would take nothing but 2 suitcases and a hospital bag. She would also take the invisible structure that had been holding his entire family together. When Ethan finally understood what she had taken with her, Madison would be the last person capable of giving it back. By 7 the next morning, Ethan Caldwell woke to silence. For a few seconds, he forgot what had happened. Then his hand reached across the bed and touched cold sheets. He called for Norah. There was no answer. He sat up. Her nightstand was almost untouched. The prenatal vitamins were gone. Her blood pressure monitor and phone charger were missing too. When Ethan opened the closet, most of Norah's clothes were still hanging neatly beside his suits. She hadn't packed like someone trying to punish him. She had packed like someone who had already made a decision. Downstairs, the kitchen looked exactly as it had the night before, except her wedding ring was gone from his palm. Ethan had placed it beside his Rolex before going to bed. Now it sat alone on the marble counter. He checked his phone. There were 3 missed calls from his mother, 1 message from Lily, and a text from Norah. It was sent at 5:42 a.m. The message said, "I'm safe. The baby is safe. I'm staying at Aunt Claire's cottage in Concord. I'll contact you later about practical matters." That was all. There was no accusation, no threat, and no demand that he come after her. Ethan read it twice. Something about her calmness irritated him. He had expected anger. Anger would have allowed him to defend himself. Instead, Norah had left him with nothing to fight against. He only had what he had done. His phone rang. It was Madison. He hesitated before answering. She asked softly, "Hey, are you okay?" Ethan walked toward the windows. Morning traffic was beginning below. Headlights were moving through the gray Boston rain. He said, "She left." Madison went quiet. Then she carefully asked, "What does that mean?" Ethan looked at the empty kitchen. He said, "It means it's finally over." The words felt strange coming out of his mouth. But underneath the guilt, there was something else. Relief. For months, Ethan had lived two lives. At home, there were prenatal appointments and insurance forms. There was Lily's counseling schedule, his mother's medications, and his father's assisted living bills. With Madison, there were cocktails, hotel bars, and expensive dinners. Their conversations had nothing to do with responsibility. Now, he no longer had to hide. That evening, Madison met him at a restaurant near Newbury Street. She wore a cream wool coat and gold earrings. They caught the candlelight when she smiled. Ethan ordered a bottle of Burgundy. For the first hour, everything felt easy. Madison touched his hand across the table. She said, "You look lighter." He almost laughed. "I feel lighter," he replied. And for one dangerous moment, Ethan believed that was the truth. After dinner, he drove home alone in his Mercedes. The house was dark. Usually, Norah left a lamp on near the stairs. Tonight, there was nothing. Ethan tossed his keys onto the kitchen island and opened the refrigerator. There were no prepared meals. There were no glass containers labeled for Lily. There was no reminder tape beside the milk about his father's low-sodium diet. He frowned. Then his phone buzzed. It was a calendar notification. Mom cardiology follow-up, 9:30 a.m. Ethan stared at it. He had no idea where the appointment was. Another notification appeared. Dad neurology, Saturday 11 a.m. Then another. Lily school counselor meeting Thursday. Ethan opened the shared family calendar. For years, Norah's name had appeared beside nearly every appointment. Norah confirmed. Norah driving. Norah bringing paperwork. Norah calling pharmacy. Now those notes were gone. They weren't deleted, just transferred. Every appointment remained. But Ethan's name was now listed under family responsibility. His mother called again. He answered. "Mom, where is Norah?" she asked. Ethan rubbed his forehead. "We're taking some space," he told her. "What does that mean?" "It means she's staying somewhere else for a while." There was a pause. Then Diane asked, "What did you do?" His irritation returned immediately. "Why does everyone assume I did something?" he asked. "Because Norah doesn't leave when things get difficult," she replied. Ethan said nothing. Diane continued, "My cardiologist's office called. Norah usually confirms everything, so confirm it." There was another pause. It was longer this time. "All right," Diane said quietly. Then she hung up. Ethan stood alone in the kitchen. For the first time, he noticed a folder on the counter. It was labeled Family Information. Inside were printed medication lists, insurance numbers, emergency contacts, and appointment addresses. Norah had organized everything before leaving. Even in heartbreak, she had made sure nobody would suffer because of her departure. His phone buzzed again. This time it was Lily. She asked, "Dad, is Norah really gone?" Ethan typed, "We're working things out." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. A minute later, Lily sent another message. "I'm going to see her tomorrow." Ethan stared at the screen. Across town, Norah sat in the small Concord cottage. She held a mug of tea with both hands. The house was old. The floorboards creaked. A half-open Amazon box sat beside the couch. It was sent by her brother Caleb. Inside were a Kindle, a soft blanket, and a note. It read, "You don't have to be strong every minute." Norah pressed the note to her chest. Then her phone rang. It was Lily. Norah answered, "Hi, sweetheart." For several seconds, there was only breathing. Then the 16-year-old whispered through tears, "Are you leaving me too?" Norah closed her eyes. Her composure finally broke. "No," she whispered. "Never you." But as Lily began crying on the other end, Norah realized something terrible. Ethan's betrayal had already wounded someone neither of them had been thinking about. When Ethan discovered what Lily had been secretly carrying for months, losing Norah wouldn't be his only fear. Norah kept the phone pressed to her ear while Lily cried. The sound was quiet at first. It was almost embarrassed, as if the 16-year-old were trying not to let anyone hear. Norah said softly, "Sweetheart, listen to me. I'm not leaving you." "But you left, Dad," Lily said. "That is different," Norah told her. Lily sniffed. "It doesn't feel different." Norah closed her eyes. She understood more than Lily realized. When Norah married Ethan, Lily had already survived one broken home. Her parents' divorce had been respectful on paper, but children rarely experience divorce through legal documents. Lily remembered 2 houses and 2 Christmas schedules. She remembered forgotten school shoes. She carried the constant fear that loving one parent too openly might hurt the other. Norah had never tried to replace Rebecca. She never asked Lily to call her mom. She simply showed up. When Lily was 13 and had her first panic attack before a school dance, Norah sat beside her. They stayed on the bathroom floor for nearly an hour. When Lily began therapy, Norah waited in the parking lot every Thursday with hot chocolate. When Ethan forgot a parent-teacher meeting because of a client dinner, Norah went. When Lily learned to drive, Norah let her practice in an empty Target parking lot. Ethan had become too impatient after 10 minutes. Those moments had seemed small. Now Norah realized Lily had built safety out of them. "Can I come see you?" Lily asked. Norah looked toward the rain-darkened window. "Yes," she said, "but I need to call your mom first." "You don't have to," Lily argued. "I do," Norah replied. Norah would not make Lily choose sides. She called Rebecca immediately. Rebecca answered after the second ring. "Is everything okay?" Norah said, "I wanted to ask before Lily comes here." There was a pause. "So it's true?" Rebecca asked. Norah knew what she meant. "Yes," she answered. Rebecca exhaled slowly. "I'm sorry," she said. "Thank you," Norah replied. Another pause followed. It was heavier this time. Then Rebecca said, "She trusts you." "I'm not going to take that away from her just because Ethan made a mess." An hour later, Lily arrived. She carried a backpack and wore an oversized Boston University sweatshirt. Norah opened the cottage door. Lily walked straight into her arms. The girl held on so tightly that Norah had to steady herself against the wall. "I'm sorry," Lily whispered. Norah pulled back. "For what?" Lily looked down. "I knew," she said. Norah went still. "Knew what?" Lily's face crumpled. "About Madison." The room seemed to lose sound. Norah guided her toward the couch. "How long?" she asked. "A few months," Lily replied. Norah's chest tightened. Lily wiped her cheeks. Dad left his iPad in the kitchen one night. His messages were still connected to his phone. Norah said nothing. "I wasn't trying to snoop," Lily explained. A message popped up. "What did it say?" Norah asked. Lily hesitated. Then she forced the words out. She said she missed waking up next to him. Norah looked away. The baby moved beneath her ribs. She breathed through the pain. Lily continued. "I thought maybe I misunderstood." Then there were more messages. "Why didn't you tell me?" Norah asked. Lily began crying harder. "Because I thought you'd leave." Norah's heart broke. It wasn't because Ethan had betrayed her. It was because a child had spent months protecting a marriage that was never her responsibility. "Oh, Lily. I thought if I stayed quiet, maybe he would stop," she said. Norah moved closer. "You should never have had to carry that." "I didn't know what to do," Lily cried. "You were supposed to be 16, Norah told her. Lily covered her face. Norah pulled her into her arms. "You were never responsible for keeping us married." "But if I told you," Lily started. "No." Norah's voice became firmer. "If our marriage could only survive because you kept his secret, then it was already broken." Lily cried against her shoulder. For several minutes, neither spoke. Then Lily whispered, "Do you hate him?" Norah looked toward the small nursery corner she had begun setting up. "No," she answered. Lily pulled back, surprised. "I'm angry," Norah explained. "I'm hurt. But hate would still give him too much space in my life." Lily stared at her. "What are you going to do?" she asked. "I'm going to have your baby brother," Norah said. For the first time, Lily almost smiled. "And after that, I'm going to figure out who I am when I'm not spending every day trying to hold everyone else together." That evening, Norah called Rebecca again. She told her what Lily had admitted. Rebecca was silent for a long time. Then she said, "Ethan needs to know." Norah agreed. She would not make Lily tell him. Across town, Ethan was sitting alone in the Brookline house when his phone rang. Norah, his heart jumped. He answered immediately. "Are you okay?" "Yes," she said. "The baby is fine." Ethan leaned back. "Then why are you calling?" Norah's voice changed. "Because Lily told me something tonight." Ethan sat forward. "What happened?" he asked. "She knew about Madison," Norah said. Silence filled the line. Ethan's face drained. "What?" he asked. "She saw your messages months ago," Norah told him. He stood up. "No, that's impossible." "And she saw them on your iPad," Norah added. Ethan walked toward the counter. He stared at the device sitting there. How much did she see? Enough, Norah replied. He pressed his hand against the marble. Norah continued. She kept quiet because she thought if I found out, I would leave. Ethan closed his eyes. For the first time since Norah walked out, he felt something worse than guilt. He felt shame. She thought it was her job to keep our family together, Norah said. Ethan whispered, "Where is she?" "With me," Norah answered. "I'm coming over," Ethan said. "No, Ethan." Norah stopped him. "She's my daughter," he argued, "and she is finally asleep after crying for an hour because of something you did," Norah said. Ethan said nothing. "She needs calm tonight," Norah continued, "not explanations." The line went quiet. Then Ethan asked, "Does she hate me?" Norah's answer came slowly. "I think she's more afraid of becoming someone you can leave." That sentence shattered something inside him. After the call ended, Ethan walked upstairs. He opened Lily's bedroom door. The room was empty. Her books were still stacked on the desk. A framed photograph sat beside them. It showed Ethan, Norah, and Lily at Cape Cod the previous summer. All three were laughing. Ethan picked up the frame. For the first time, he understood that his affair hadn't created one victim. It had created a frightened daughter. She had been silently watching her father decide what loyalty meant. And the next morning, Ethan would discover that Norah wasn't the only woman in his family who had stopped protecting him. His mother was coming to the house, and she already knew exactly what he had done. At 9 the next morning, Ethan heard a car door slam outside the Brookline house. He looked through the front window. He saw his mother walking toward the porch. Diane Caldwell was 69, silver-haired, and neatly dressed. She was usually impossible to rattle. She carried no purse, no coffee, and no expression Ethan could read. That worried him. He opened the door before she knocked. "Mom, is Madison Reed the reason Norah left?" There was no greeting, no small talk. Ethan stepped aside. "Come in," he said. "Diane didn't move. Answer me first." Ethan glanced toward the neighboring houses. "Can we not do this outside?" he asked. "Then stop giving me reasons to ask questions outside," she replied. He exhaled and moved back. Diane entered. On the kitchen counter sat Ethan's untouched coffee. It was beside his iPad and a stack of financial reports. Norah's wedding ring was still near the edge of the marble island. Diane saw it immediately. Her face changed. Not dramatically, just enough. "How long?" she asked. Ethan pulled out a chair. "Mom," he started. "How long have you been sleeping with her?" Diane repeated. He looked down. "A few months." Diane sat slowly. "And Norah is 34 weeks pregnant?" she asked. "Yes," he answered. The silence that followed was worse than shouting. Ethan finally said, "The marriage had problems before Madison." Diane looked up. "Of course it did," she said. "Every marriage has problems." "You don't know what it was like," Ethan argued. "No, I know what betrayal is like," she replied. Ethan frowned. Diane folded her hands. "Your father cheated on me," she said. The room went still. Ethan stared at her. "What?" he asked. "You were 8, she told him. "That's not true," he said. "It is," she answered. He shook his head. "Dad would never," Ethan insisted. "He did," Diane said. Ethan stepped away from the counter. It was as if distance could change what he had heard. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "Because you were a child," she explained. "It was not your burden." That sentence hit differently after what Norah had told him about Lily. Ethan looked away. Diane continued. "Walter had an affair with a woman from his office. It lasted less than 6 months. When I found out, I packed 2 suitcases and took you to your grandmother's house." Ethan's voice dropped. "But you went back," he said. Diane's eyes sharpened. "Yes," she replied. Something inside Ethan lifted. It was a dangerous kind of hope. "So you understand," he said. Diane stared at him. "That is what you heard?" she asked. Ethan's face tightened. "I'm saying people make mistakes." "Your father called it a mistake too," she said. She stood up. "Do you know what happened after I went back?" Ethan said nothing. 3 years of marriage counseling, Diane told him. Complete access to every account, every phone call explained, every business trip discussed before he booked it. He changed jobs because the woman worked in the same building. Diane stepped closer. "He came home every night knowing I might still decide I could not forgive him." Ethan swallowed. "He didn't buy me jewelry and ask why I was still angry," she added. "I haven't done that," Ethan defended. "Not yet," she replied. The words landed hard. Diane looked toward Norah's ring. "Your father understood something you clearly don't." "What?" Ethan asked. "Forgiveness is not something the guilty person gets to schedule," she said. Ethan's jaw tightened. You're acting like Norah and I are already finished. No, Diane said. Norah is acting like she finally believes you when you show her where she stands. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I never said she didn't matter. Diane gave him a tired look. You didn't have to, she told him. Then she asked, does Lily know? Ethan froze. Diane saw the answer. Oh, Ethan, she sighed. She found messages, he explained. How long has that child known? Diane asked. A few months, he answered. Diane closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were wet. And you let your 16-year-old daughter carry the shame of your affair, while your pregnant wife planned for a baby. I didn't know Lily saw anything, Ethan argued. That doesn't make it better, she replied. Ethan's voice rose. I know I screwed up. No, you know you got caught, Diane said. He stared at her. Diane's voice softened, which somehow made it worse. You will know you truly screwed up when you stop asking who will forgive you and start asking who you damaged. For the first time, Ethan had no defense ready. Diane picked up the family information folder Norah had left behind. She opened it. Her cardiology appointment was highlighted in yellow. Walter's neurology appointment was highlighted in blue. Lily's counselor was marked in purple. Every page contained Norah's careful notes. Diane ran one finger over the handwriting. She did this before leaving, she asked. Yes, Ethan said. Even after what you told her. Ethan nodded. Diane closed the folder. That woman was heartbroken, and she still made sure your father had the right insurance information. Ethan looked toward the window. His mother's next words were quiet. Do not confuse kindness with weakness, Ethan. Women like Norah can carry more than anyone notices. She put on her coat, and when they finally put the weight down, everyone suddenly discovers how heavy it was. Where are you going? Ethan asked. To see Norah, she replied. Ethan looked up. You're taking her side. Diane stopped at the doorway. There should not be sides when the facts are this clear. Then she left. 40 minutes later, Norah opened the cottage door. She found Diane standing there with an old cedar box in her hands. Inside was a faded blue baby blanket. Norah touched it carefully. What is this? She asked. Ethan came home from the hospital wrapped in it, Diane told her. Norah's eyes filled. I was saving it for your baby. Diane placed it in her hands. Whatever happens between you and my son, you are still Ben's mother. That matters to me. Norah's composure broke. Diane pulled her into an embrace, and across the room Lily watched silently. She realized something Ethan hadn't yet understood. His family wasn't choosing against him. They were simply refusing to abandon Norah just because he had. But by Saturday morning, Ethan would be forced to handle one responsibility Norah had quietly carried for years. And the man waiting for him would make sure he could no longer hide behind excuses. Saturday morning began with a problem Ethan had never considered a problem before. His father needed a ride. At 9:14, Ethan stood in the kitchen wearing dark jeans and a navy sweater. He was staring at a message from Lexington Assisted Living. Mr. Caldwell's neurology appointment is confirmed for 11 a.m. Please arrive by 10:30 for transport. He frowned. For the past 2 years, Norah had handled appointments like this. Sometimes Diane went with her. Sometimes Norah went alone. Ethan had always assumed there was some kind of facility shuttle. He called the residence. A nurse answered. No, Mr. Caldwell. Your father prefers family transport for specialist visits. Since when? Ethan asked. There was a pause. Since always. Ethan looked at the clock. Madison had already texted him twice. Brunch at 11, she asked. Then I found a table at Contessa. Ethan typed back, can't. Dad has a doctor's appointment. The typing bubbles appeared immediately. Can't the facility take him? She asked. Ethan stared at the question. Normally, he might have agreed. Today, he heard something different in it, not cruelty. Distance. He drove his Mercedes to Lexington. Walter was waiting in the lobby. He wore a brown wool coat and held his cane. His hands trembled slightly as he tried to zip the coat. Ethan stepped forward. Here, let me help, he said. Walter let him help. Where's Norah? Walter asked. The question came before hello. Ethan felt irritation rise. She's not coming, he said. Walter looked at him. Why? We're separated, Ethan told him. Walter's expression. What did you do? He asked. Ethan almost laughed. You too, he asked. Walter raised an eyebrow. Should I have asked what she did? Ethan said nothing. The ride to the hospital was uncomfortable. Walter sat quietly watching Boston pass through the window. At a red light, Ethan's phone connected through the dashboard. Madison called. He rejected it. 2 minutes later, she called again. Walter noticed. Business? He asked. No, Ethan said. Then answer, Walter told him. Ethan sighed and accepted. Hey, Madison's voice filled the car. Are you still at the appointment? We're on the way, Ethan said. I thought we could meet afterward, she suggested. I don't know how long it will take, he replied. A pause followed. Ethan, it's Saturday, she said. I know, he answered. You said we'd finally have weekends, she reminded him. Walter turned his face toward the window. Ethan lowered his voice. I'll call you later. He ended the call. Walter said nothing for nearly a minute. Then he asked, Is that her? Ethan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Yes, he said. The woman? Walter clarified. Yes, Ethan repeated. Walter nodded slowly. There was no lecture and no anger. That almost made it worse. At the neurology clinic, Ethan filled out forms he had never seen before. Medication changes, insurance information, recent symptoms. He reached a question. Has the patient experienced increased tremors in the past 90 days? Ethan looked at Walter. Have you? He asked. Walter gave him a tired look. You don't know, he replied. Ethan swallowed. No, Norah does. The neurologist entered. 20 minutes later, Dr. Franklin asked about Walter's sleep, balance, and medication timing. Ethan struggled with every answer. Finally, Walter opened his wallet and handed him a folded sheet. Norah's handwriting covered the page. Morning tremor worse before breakfast. 2 balance episodes in October. Medication sometimes causes dizziness after lunch. Ask about physical therapy adjustment. Ethan stared at it. She wrote this, he asked. Walter nodded. Thursday night. The night Norah discovered the affair. Ethan looked down again. Even while her marriage was falling apart, Norah had prepared his father's medical notes. After the appointment, they stopped at a small bakery near Lexington Center. Walter asked for lemon cake. Ethan nearly ordered chocolate. Then he remembered something from the family folder. Dad likes lemon, not chocolate. Ethan stopped. Lemon, he said. Walter looked at him. Norah remind you, he asked. No. Ethan sat across from his father with 2 coffees between them. She wrote it down. Walter slowly cut into the cake. You know what the dangerous thing about a woman like Norah is? Ethan's expression hardened. What? He asked. You start believing all the things she does happen naturally. Walter set down his fork. The appointments, birthdays, medicine, Lily, your mother, me. Ethan stared at the table. Walter continued. You thought family life was easy because somebody else was carrying the hard parts. Ethan looked away. His phone buzzed. Madison asked, Are you free now? He didn't answer. Walter studied him. You want advice? He asked. No, Ethan said. I'll give it anyway, Walter told him. Ethan almost smiled. Walter leaned back. The woman you're seeing probably knows the version of you that shows up after someone else already cleaned up the day. That sentence stayed with Ethan all afternoon. That evening, Madison came to Brookline carrying a bottle of expensive wine. She kissed him at the door. Finally, for an hour, things felt normal. Then the front door opened. Lily stepped inside. She stopped when she saw Madison. Madison froze. Ethan stood up. Lily said, I just came for my history book. Madison tried to smile. Hi, Lily. Lily looked at her, then at Ethan. Is this her? She asked. Let's not do this, Ethan said. Lily ignored him. She faced Madison. Did you know Norah was pregnant? Madison's silence lasted only 2 seconds. It was enough. Lily nodded. Okay. She walked upstairs. Ethan followed. Lily, wait, he said. She turned. You didn't just cheat on Norah, she told him. I know, he said. No, you don't. Her eyes filled. You made everyone who trusted you feel stupid. Ethan stopped. Lily grabbed her book and walked past him at the front door. She looked back at Madison. I hope the dinners were worth it. Then she left. The house went silent. Madison folded her arms. Is she always going to treat me like that? Ethan looked at her. She's 16, he said. I know. But I didn't sign up to be punished forever, she replied. And for the first time, Ethan heard what Norah had probably understood long ago. Madison wanted him, but she had never wanted the family attached to him. And when Norah's pregnancy suddenly turned dangerous, Ethan would discover exactly how quickly Madison's version of love disappeared. 3 days after Lily confronted Madison, Norah stood beneath the bright lights of a grocery store in Concord. She was staring at a shelf of baby formula she hoped she would never need. Her doctor had encouraged her to prepare for every possibility. Breastfeeding might go perfectly. It might not. Normally, Nora would have researched every brand on her laptop. She would have read reviews, compared ingredients, and made a careful decision. That morning, she could barely focus on the labels. Her head had been aching since breakfast. She told herself it was exhaustion. She had slept less than 4 hours. At 35 weeks pregnant, almost everything hurt anyway. Nora placed one container into her cart and moved toward the next aisle. Then the lights above her seemed to flash. She stopped. The floor tilted. Her hearing became strangely distant. It was as though the store had suddenly moved underwater. Nora grabbed the shopping cart with both hands. "Ma'am," a store employee hurried toward her. "I'm fine," Nora whispered, but she wasn't. Her vision blurred around the edges. The baby moved sharply beneath her ribs. Nora slowly lowered herself onto a nearby bench. "Do you need an ambulance?" the employee asked. "No. Just give me a second," she said. Years of working around frightened hospital families had taught Nora how easily people minimize their own symptoms when they're scared. Now she was doing exactly that. She reached into her handbag and pulled out the portable blood pressure monitor her obstetrician had told her to carry. The reading appeared. Nora stared at the numbers. Then she checked again. It was still high. Her hands began trembling. She called her obstetrician's office. A nurse listened carefully before saying, "Nora, I want you evaluated at labor and delivery triage now." "Do you think it's preeclampsia?" Nora asked. "We don't know," the nurse said. "That's why you need to come in." Nora closed her eyes. "Can I drive?" she asked. "No." That answer frightened her more than anything else. Her first instinct was to call Caleb. Her brother answered immediately. "Nora, I need a ride to Mass General," she told him. The joking warmth disappeared from his voice. "What happened?" he asked. "My blood pressure is high. I'm leaving now. Please." "You're in Vermont," she realized. "I know," Caleb said. "That's 2 hours away." "Then call Ethan," he told her. Nora said nothing. "Okay," he said. "Call Diane." Nora looked down at her bare left hand. "I don't want to scare her," she said. "Nora," he replied. "She'd rather be scared beside you than find out afterward." He was right. Diane answered on the first ring. 25 minutes later, she arrived in a dark blue Lexus. She didn't ask questions until Nora was safely in the passenger seat. At Massachusetts General Hospital, nurses placed monitors around Nora's belly and took blood samples. The baby's heartbeat was steady. That helped. But Nora's blood pressure remained concerning. Diane sat beside the bed holding Nora's coat and hospital bag. "You should call Ethan," Nora finally said. Diane studied her. "Do you want me to?" she asked. "He's the father. If something is medically wrong with Ben, he should know." Diane nodded. It wasn't because Ethan deserved comfort. It was because Nora still refused to use their child as punishment. At that moment, Ethan was standing in a glass-walled conference room at Caldwell Mercer Wealth Management. A stock market ticker moved silently across one screen while a client presentation filled another. His Mont Blanc pen rested beside his laptop. His phone vibrated. It was his mom. He ignored it. It rang again. Ethan excused himself. "What happened?" he asked. Diane's voice was controlled. "Nora's at Mass General," she said. Everything inside him stopped. "Why?" he asked. Her blood pressure spiked. "They're monitoring her and the baby." "I'm coming," he said. Ethan didn't return to the meeting. He grabbed his coat and left. Madison happened to be waiting downstairs in the lobby. They had planned dinner after work. She smiled when she saw him, then noticed his face. "What happened?" she asked. "Nora's in the hospital," he told her. Madison's expression tightened. "Is the baby coming?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. She took a step toward him. "Do you want me to come?" she asked. Ethan hesitated. "No," he said. It was the first time he had openly chosen a boundary between Madison and his family. He drove through Boston traffic with both hands locked around the steering wheel. By the time he reached the hospital, Diane was standing outside Nora's room. "How is she?" he asked. "Stable," Diane said. "The baby is stable." Ethan exhaled. Then he asked the question before he could stop himself. "Why didn't she call me?" Diane looked directly at him. "You know why," she replied. He did. Inside the room, Nora lay beneath a white blanket. She wore no makeup. Her hair was pulled into a loose knot. A fetal monitor traced Ben's heartbeat beside her. For the first time since she left, Ethan didn't see the wife who had rejected him. He saw the woman carrying his child while navigating fear without him. He stepped closer. "Nora," he called gently. She opened her eyes. You came, she said. The words were not warm or cold, just surprised. Of course I came, he told her. Norah looked at the monitor. We're stable, she explained. They don't think I need to deliver tonight, but relief hit him so hard he had to sit down. I'm sorry, he said. Norah looked back at him. For what part, she asked. Ethan had no answer small enough for the moment. He reached toward her hand, then stopped. Can I? He asked. Norah shook her head gently, not angrily. Ethan pulled his hand back. What do you need from me? He asked. She took a slow breath. Be Ben's father, she said. I will, he promised. But don't come here because you suddenly want to be my husband, she told him. His face tightened. Norah, I mean it. She looked directly at him. I am not asking you to choose me anymore. Ethan lowered his eyes. There was no accusation in her voice. That was what hurt most. 2 hours later, the doctor allowed Norah to leave with strict instructions. Rest, monitor her blood pressure, and return immediately if she develops severe headache, vision changes, pain, or contractions. Ethan offered to drive her. Norah declined. Diane helped her toward the elevator. Ethan stood alone in the corridor. His phone buzzed. It was Madison. Are we still having dinner? She asked. He stared at the message for a long time. For weeks, Madison had represented escape. Tonight, the question suddenly sounded unbearably small. He locked his phone without answering. Before the week ended, Ethan would try to win Norah back with flowers, gifts, and apologies. Only to learn that the woman who once accepted almost nothing from him would now reject everything that came without real change. 2 mornings after Norah left the hospital, a delivery van stopped outside the Concord cottage. The driver carried 3 arrangements of white roses to the porch. Norah stared at them through the window. Lily was sitting at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal. She looked up. Dad, she said. Norah didn't have to answer. A card rested between the flowers. It read, I should have protected you from all of this. I am sorry, Ethan. Norah read it once, then placed it face down. At noon, another package arrived. This time it was from Cartier. Lily's eyebrows rose. Okay, he's panicking, she said. Inside was a delicate gold bracelet. Norah didn't even try it on. She closed the box. Can you put that by the door? She asked. You're sending it back, Lily asked. Yes, Norah said. Lily studied her. Aren't you tempted? Norah looked at the bracelet. A year earlier, something like this would have made her feel loved. Now it felt like an expensive way of avoiding an uncomfortable conversation. Jewelry is easy, Norah said. Changing is harder. That afternoon, Ethan called. I'd like to see you, he told her. Norah hesitated. If this is about Ben, yes. It's about us, Ethan replied. Then I don't know, she said. Norah, please. The word please mattered because Ethan rarely used it when he was afraid. She finally agreed to 20 minutes. He arrived carrying a coffee cup in one hand and no flowers. Decaf latte, he said. 1 pump vanilla, her usual order. Norah accepted it, not as forgiveness, but as coffee. They sat across from each other in the small living room. Ethan looked exhausted. His suit was gone. He wore a gray sweater and dark pants. He looked like the man Norah remembered from quiet Sunday mornings before work calls consumed everything. For a dangerous second, she missed him. Then she remembered why he was there. I ended things with Madison, he said. Norah's eyes lifted. When? She asked. Yesterday. Why? Because I realized what I was risking. Her expression hardened. You realized that after I went to the hospital, she said. I realized it before, he argued. No, Ethan, you got scared before, she replied. He looked down. That's fair. Norah had expected an argument. The fact that he agreed almost unsettled her more. I want to fix this, he said. What does that mean? She asked. Counseling, transparency, whatever you need, he offered. Norah folded her hands over her stomach. And if I say I don't want to come back, she asked. His face tightened. I'm asking you not to decide yet. I decided the night you told me you didn't know if you loved her, Norah explained. Norah, you were willing to destroy our marriage for someone you weren't even sure about. I know, he said. No, I don't think you do, she replied. He leaned forward. I'm trying, he insisted. You're buying flowers, she told him. That's not fair, Ethan argued. Norah looked toward the Cartier box by the door. Ethan followed her eyes. His face changed. You're sending it back, he asked. Yes. It wasn't meant to buy you, he told her. Then why did you send it, she asked. He had no immediate answer. Norah spoke quietly. You don't get to turn regret into a purchase. Ethan leaned back. I didn't know what else to do. That's the problem, she said. He looked at her. For years, whenever something hurt, you fixed the visible part. A vacation, jewelry, a dinner. Then we went back to normal. I thought you liked those things, he said. I did, she paused, but I liked you more. That silenced him. Nora's eyes filled, but she refused to look away. I didn't need Cartier. I needed you to come home when you said you would. I needed you to remember Lily's counselor without me reminding you. I needed you to visit your father before he became another appointment on my calendar. Ethan's throat tightened. I can do those things, he promised. You should, she replied. Hope appeared in his face. Then Norah continued, but not as payment for getting me back. The hope disappeared. Then what am I supposed to do, he asked. Become the man you should have been, even if I never return. Ethan stared at her. For the first time, Norah saw that he understood the difference. At least a little, he asked. Would you do counseling with me? For co-parenting, she asked. His jaw tightened again. Only co-parenting. For now, she answered. Ethan stood up and walked toward the window. Rain clung to the bare trees. I'm terrified that by the time I figure this out, you'll be done with me, he said. Nora's voice softened. You're still making this about what you might lose, she told him. He turned. What should it be about? What you already did to the people who trusted you, she replied. His eyes dropped. Lily came home from Rebecca's house just before Ethan left. She stopped when she saw him. Hey, Ethan said. Hey, an uncomfortable silence followed. He wanted to hug her. Instead, he asked, Can I call you tomorrow? Lily shrugged. Sure. It wasn't forgiveness, but it wasn't rejection. Ethan accepted it. That evening, he drove back to Brookline with the unopened Cartier box on the passenger seat. For the first time in his life, an expensive gift had failed to solve anything. The next morning, his phone showed 2 appointments at the same time. One was an $80 million client dinner that could determine a major account. The other was Lily's meeting with her school counselor. For years, Norah would have handled the family problem before Ethan even noticed the conflict. Now, no one was going to make the choice for him. When Ethan finally chose which appointment to attend, Lily would reveal just how deeply his betrayal had changed the way she saw love, family, and him. At 4:18 Thursday afternoon, Ethan sat behind the wheel of his Mercedes outside Caldwell Mercer Wealth Management. He was staring at 2 calendar alerts on his phone. 6 p.m. dinner with Parker Family Office. 6 p.m. Lily Caldwell School Counselor Meeting. The Parker account was worth nearly $80 million. His partner, Michael Turner, had spent 6 months trying to win it. Ethan had been expected to lead the dinner at the Newberry Boston, where the private dining room was already reserved. Then there was Lily. For years, conflicts like this had somehow disappeared before reaching him. Norah moved appointments, called Rebecca, rescheduled counselors, drove across town, made excuses, and protected everyone from Ethan's calendar. Tonight, nobody was doing that. His phone rang. It was Michael. You're on your way, right? Michael asked. Ethan looked at the school address. No. Silence followed. What do you mean, no? Michael asked. I need you to take the Parker dinner, Ethan told him. You're kidding. I'm not. Michael lowered his voice. Ethan, they specifically asked for you. My daughter needs me, Ethan replied. There was another pause. Then Michael said, okay, I'll handle it. There was no explosion, no ruined company, no multi-million-dollar disaster. Just a decision Ethan should have learned how to make years earlier. At 5:48, he walked into Lily's school. She was already sitting outside the counselor's office. She wore jeans, sneakers, and a gray sweatshirt. When she saw him, surprise crossed her face. You came? She asked. Ethan sat beside her. I said I would. You also had that client thing, she mentioned. He looked at her. How did you know? He asked. Norah used to complain that your calendar looked like air traffic control, Lily said. For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan said, the client will survive. Lily looked away. The counselor, Mrs. Jennings, invited them inside. Rebecca joined by video because she was finishing a late shift at the rehabilitation center. At first, the meeting seemed routine. Grades, college pressure, sleep. Then Mrs. Jennings turned toward Ethan. Lily's panic episodes have increased over the past 2 months. Ethan's chest tightened. How bad? He asked. Lily stared at the floor. Mrs. Jennings answered carefully. She's had 3 significant episodes at school. Why didn't anyone tell me? He asked. Lily looked up. I didn't want to. Ethan felt the words hit him. Why? He asked. Her voice was quiet. Because every time something gets hard, someone leaves. Rebecca's face on the laptop screen changed. Ethan leaned forward. Lily, when Mom and I divorced, everything changed. Rebecca closed her eyes briefly. Lily continued. Then Norah came and I finally stopped feeling like I had to worry all the time. Her eyes filled. And then I found out about Madison. Ethan went still. I kept thinking if Norah knew, she'd leave too, Lily explained. She didn't leave because of you, Ethan said. I know that now, Lily wiped her cheek. But my brain doesn't care what makes sense when I'm panicking. The room fell silent. Mrs. Jennings gave Ethan a moment before speaking. Lily has developed a pattern of believing that if she becomes difficult, disappointed, angry, or inconvenient, people may stop choosing her. Ethan looked at his daughter. For years, he had believed affairs happened between adults, private choices causing private damage. Now he saw himself sitting inside the consequences. I'm sorry, he said. Lily's expression tightened. I know. No, Ethan shook his head. I mean, I'm sorry I made you carry something that belonged to me. Lily looked at him. I didn't know you saw those messages, Ethan told her. But I should never have put anything on that iPad that could destroy your trust in me. You shouldn't have sent the messages at all, Lily replied. Ethan swallowed. You're right. Her face softened slightly. Not forgiveness, but surprise. After the meeting, Rebecca ended the call after asking Ethan to text her later. Lily and Ethan walked through the parking lot together. He unlocked the Mercedes. She didn't get in. Dad, she said, yeah. Are you going back to Madison? He froze. He had told Norah he ended it. But Madison had called twice since then. They had not met. He had not answered. Still, the question exposed something. I don't know what happens next, he said. Lily gave a tired laugh. That means yes. No, it means I'm trying not to lie to you, he explained. She looked at him for a long moment. Then stop making other people live inside your confusion, she told him. Ethan had no response. He drove her to Rebecca's house. Before getting out, Lily touched the door handle, then stopped. I'm glad you came tonight, she said. Those 6 words meant more than the Parker account ever could. Later, Ethan drove to Lexington instead of home. Walter was sitting in the assisted living lounge, watching an old baseball game. Ethan took the chair beside him. Can I ask you something? Ethan asked. Walter looked at him. About your mother, he guessed. Ethan nodded. How long did it take before she trusted you again? He asked. Walter didn't answer immediately. Years, he finally said. Ethan looked down. I thought if I did enough things right, maybe Norah would see I'm changing. Walter's expression turned sad. I used to think that too. What changed? Ethan asked. I stopped treating good behavior like a down payment on forgiveness, Walter explained. Ethan looked at him. Walter continued. Your mother didn't owe me another marriage because I finally learned how to be decent. That sentence stayed with Ethan on the drive home. When he entered the Brookline house, Madison was waiting in the living room. A half-finished glass of wine sat on the coffee table. She stood up. Where have you been? She asked. With Lily, Ethan replied. Madison folded her arms. You canceled dinner with me again, she said. It wasn't dinner with you. It was a school meeting, he explained. There is always something, she argued. Ethan looked at her. My daughter needed me. I know, Ethan. But your mother needs you. Your father needs you. Lily needs you. Norah needs things for the baby. There is always another emergency. Ethan studied her face. For weeks, he had treated those obligations like chains. Tonight, something had shifted. Yes, he said. Madison frowned. Yes, what? Yes, there will always be something, he answered. She stared at him. Ethan continued. That's what having a family is. And for the first time, Madison looked less like the future he had chosen, and more like the escape he had mistaken for one. While Ethan was finally learning to show up, Norah was about to discover something that would break him in a different way. She had quietly carried his entire family for years, and he had never once noticed the weight. The next morning, Ethan woke before sunrise. For the first time in years, there was no message from Norah reminding him of something he had forgotten. No note about Walter's medication, no update from Lily's school, no question about Diane's cardiology follow-up, just silence. He made coffee and opened the family laptop that still sat in the home office. He had been looking for an old insurance statement. Instead, he noticed a folder on the desktop labeled Family Admin. Ethan clicked it. Inside were dozens of files. medical, school, insurance, taxes, emergency contacts, house maintenance, birthdays. At first, Ethan expected the kind of information anyone might keep. Then he opened Diane's folder: medication list, cardiologist phone number, blood pressure history, notes from appointments. There was a reminder: Mom gets anxious before medical tests. Call the night before. Ethan stared. He opened Walter's folder: neurology reports, physical therapy schedule, insurance authorization numbers. A note in Nora's handwriting read, "Dad likes lemon cake, not chocolate. Ethan always forgets." Ethan almost laughed, but nothing came out. He clicked Lily's folder: school counselor, emergency contacts, college deadlines, therapist information. A note from 6 months earlier read, "Lily seems quieter after weekends when Ethan travels. Don't push. Ask if she wants coffee." His chest tightened. Norah had noticed everything, not because anyone asked her to, but because someone had to. He kept scrolling: vehicle registrations, property tax deadlines, Christmas gift ideas, food allergies, names of nurses at Walter's residence, Rebecca's work schedule during Lily's exam week, even the brand of tea Diane preferred when she couldn't sleep. There was no file titled "Things Ethan Owes Me." There was no record of sacrifice, no list of complaints, just years of invisible labor organized into folders. Ethan leaned back in the chair. For the first time, he understood something humiliating. He had believed his family was easy. His parents seemed cared for. Lily seemed supported. Bills got paid. Doctors got called. Birthdays happened. Christmas appeared. The house worked. Because everything worked, Ethan had assumed none of it required effort. He had mistaken Nora's labor for the natural order of his life. His phone buzzed. Madison asked, "Can we talk tonight?" Ethan looked at the screen, then back at the folder. He didn't answer. At the Concord cottage, Norah sat at the kitchen table with her laptop open. A cup of decaf coffee cooled beside her. She was updating her resume. For 12 years, Norah had worked in hospital family services before stepping away during the hardest months of her pregnancy. Now, she was looking at an opening with a maternal health nonprofit connected to Mass General. Family support coordinator. The salary was modest compared to Ethan's income. The job came with flexible hours and partial remote work. Norah read the description twice. Something inside her stirred. Not revenge. Recognition. Before she became Ethan's wife, before she became Lily's safe place, before she became the person who remembered everyone else's appointments, Norah had been good at something that belonged to her. Her phone rang. It was Lily. "Hey, are you busy?" Lily asked. "Working on my resume," Norah told her. Lily sounded surprised. "For what?" Norah explained. There was a short silence. Then Lily said, "You should do it." Norah smiled. "I'm not sure I can handle a newborn and work." "You always tell me not to make my life smaller just because I'm scared," Lily reminded her. Norah laughed softly. "Did I say that all the time?" The word stayed with Norah after the call ended. For years, she had given Lily advice she had forgotten to give herself. She clicked apply. Across town, Ethan drove to Lexington that afternoon. Walter was sitting near a window in the assisted living lounge. Ethan carried a small bakery box. Walter looked at it. "What's that?" he asked. "Lemon cake," Ethan replied. Walter smiled faintly. "Norah tell you?" he asked. Ethan sat down. "She wrote it down," he said. Walter's expression changed. Ethan placed the box on the table. "I found her family files," he explained. Walter nodded slowly. "Then you finally found the work," he said. Ethan looked at him. "What?" "The work nobody sees until the person doing it stops." Ethan lowered his eyes. "I didn't know," he whispered. Walter's voice was gentle. "That was the luxury she gave you." Ethan looked away. His throat tightened. "She never complained," he said. Walter gave him a tired smile. People always notice the silence after the person carrying everything leaves. Ethan opened the cake box. Neither man spoke for a while. That evening, Ethan returned home and opened the laptop again. He found one final document: holidays. Thanksgiving menu, Christmas card list, gift ideas. At the bottom was a note from last year. Ethan says he hates traditions, but he always smiles when everyone is here. Ethan covered his face. For the first time since Norah left, he cried without trying to stop. It wasn't because he was afraid of losing her. It was because he finally understood how much of his life had been built from things she did without applause. At the cottage, Norah woke suddenly just after 2 o'clock in the morning. A hard pressure tightened across her abdomen. She sat up and waited. It passed. 7 minutes later, it came again. Norah reached for her phone and opened the contraction timer. Another one hit stronger. She stared at the screen. 36 weeks. Too early. She called labor and delivery. A nurse listened to her symptoms, then said calmly, "Mrs. Caldwell, I think you need to come in." Norah looked at the hospital bag beside the bedroom door. For the first time since leaving Ethan, fear completely replaced anger. She placed one hand over her stomach. "Ben," she whispered, "not yet." Then the next contraction began. While Ethan was finally learning how much Norah had carried for everyone else, he was about to face the one thing she could no longer carry alone. At 2:41 in the morning, Norah sat in the passenger seat of Diane's Lexus. One hand gripped the door handle and the other pressed beneath her stomach. Another contraction tightened across her abdomen. Diane glanced at her. "How far apart?" she asked. 6 minutes. "Still getting stronger?" Diane asked. Norah nodded. The highway toward Boston was almost empty. The city lights blurred by cold rain. Diane drove carefully, but Norah could see the fear in her hands. "Did you call Ethan?" Diane asked. "Not yet." "Nor I know." She closed her eyes as the contraction eased. "I just needed to know this was real first," Norah explained. Diane didn't argue. At Massachusetts General, nurses moved quickly. Norah changed into a hospital gown while monitors were wrapped around her belly. Her blood pressure was elevated again. A nurse adjusted the fetal monitor. Ben's heartbeat filled the room, fast and steady. Norah exhaled. For the moment, he was okay. The obstetrician arrived less than 20 minutes later. "You're contracting regularly," she explained. "Because you're 36 weeks, we're going to watch you closely. If the contractions continue and your blood pressure rises, we may have to deliver." Norah stared at her. "Tonight, possibly." The word landed heavily. Norah reached for her phone. This time she didn't hesitate. She sent Ethan one message. "I'm at Mass General. Regular contractions. They're monitoring Ben. You need to know." Across the city, Ethan was seated at a private table inside a luxury hotel. A client couple sat across from him, discussing estate planning while Madison sat beside him. She was elegant in a black dress, one hand resting near a glass of wine. Ethan's phone vibrated. He glanced down. Everything around him disappeared. He read the message again. Madison noticed. "What happened?" she asked. Ethan stood up. "Norah is in labor." Madison's expression changed. Now they're monitoring the baby. The client couple immediately understood. "Go," the husband said. "We'll reschedule." Ethan reached for his coat. Madison stood too. "Do you want me to come?" she asked. "No." The answer came instantly. Her face tightened. "Ethan, I need to go," he said. She followed him toward the lobby. "Do you have to leave this second?" she asked. He turned for a moment. He couldn't believe the question. "Yes," he answered. Madison folded her arms. "I'm just asking." "My child may be born tonight," he told her. "I know that." "Then why are we having this conversation?" he asked. She looked away. Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He left. By the time he reached the hospital, his tie was loose and his hair was wet from the rain. Diane stood outside Norah's room. "How is she?" he asked. "Blood pressure is high, contractions are still regular, and Ben is stable." Ethan closed his eyes briefly. "Can I see her?" he asked. Diane studied him. "She said you could." Inside, Norah lay on her side with an IV in her arm. She looked tired. Not angry, not cold, just exhausted. Ethan approached slowly. "Hey," he said. Norah opened her eyes. "You came," she replied. "Of course," he answered. He immediately regretted the words. There had been too many times when of course should have been true and wasn't. He pulled a chair closer. "What do the doctors say?" he asked. "They're trying to keep things calm. If my pressure gets worse, they may not wait." Ethan nodded. "What can I do?" he asked. "Nothing right now," she told him. He sat quietly. For the next 2 hours, Ethan did something he had rarely done well. He stayed. No laptop, no market updates, no calls from the office. When Norah needed water, he got it. When Diane became cold, he found a blanket. When the nurse asked for Norah's medication list, Ethan pulled it from the family folder on his phone. Norah noticed. She said nothing. At 4:17 a.m., the fetal monitor changed. A nurse looked at the screen. Then another nurse entered. "What's happening?" Ethan asked. Ben's heart rate dipped, they told him. "We're repositioning Norah and watching closely." Norah's face went pale. "Is he okay?" she asked. "We're working on it." The room suddenly filled with movement. Norah was turned onto her side. Oxygen was prepared. The obstetrician came in. Ethan stood frozen near the wall. He had negotiated hostile acquisitions, managed panicked investors, and sat across from clients losing millions of dollars. None of it had prepared him for watching a line on a monitor threaten the life of his son. Norah reached toward the bed rail. Her fingers were shaking. Ethan stepped closer. "Can I hold your hand?" he asked. She looked at him for 1 second. Everything between them disappeared. The affair, Madison, the ring, the separation, there was only fear. Norah nodded. Ethan took her hand. She squeezed hard. "I'm scared," she told him. His throat tightened. "So am I," he replied. The monitor slowly changed. Ben's heartbeat recovered. The room relaxed by degrees. The obstetrician stayed another minute before speaking. "He's stable again. We're going to keep monitoring very closely." Norah closed her eyes. Tears slipped down her cheeks. Ethan lowered his head. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Norah opened her eyes. "Not now," she said. He nodded immediately. There was no defense, no explanation, no request for forgiveness. Just okay. By sunrise, the contractions began slowing. The doctors decided not to deliver yet. Norah would remain under observation. Ethan stepped into the hallway and checked his phone. 5 messages from Madison. The last one read, "I can't keep being second to a family that already hates me." Ethan stared at the screen. A few weeks earlier, the message might have triggered panic. Now it only made him tired. He typed, "My child being in the hospital is not you coming second." Her reply came quickly. "That's not what I meant." Ethan looked through the hospital room window. Norah was sleeping. Diane sat beside her. Ben's heartbeat continued steadily on the monitor. For the first time, Ethan understood that Madison had always loved the version of his life that required no sacrifice. Standing there watching the family he had nearly destroyed, he finally understood something even more painful. Real love wasn't the life that asked the least from him. It was the life he should have been willing to show up for. When Madison finally demanded that Ethan choose what kind of life he wanted, she would force him to admit a truth he had avoided from the beginning. He had never stopped loving Norah at all. Norah was discharged from Massachusetts General the following afternoon with strict instructions. Rest, monitor her blood pressure twice a day, and call immediately if contractions returned. Ethan paid for a private nurse to check on her during the week, but he didn't use the gesture as an excuse to visit. For once, he understood the difference between helping and forcing himself back into her space. 2 days later, Madison asked to meet. They chose a quiet cafe in Back Bay, far from the restaurants where their affair had once felt exciting. Madison arrived first. There was no champagne, no candlelight, no hotel lobby. Just 2 coffees between them and an uncomfortable truth neither could avoid anymore. She looked tired. "So this is it?" she asked. Ethan sat across from her. "I think it has to be," he replied. Madison gave a short laugh. "You think?" she asked. He looked down. "I'm trying not to say things I don't mean anymore." Her expression hardened. "That would have been useful 6 months ago," she said. Ethan accepted the hit. "You're right." Madison folded her arms. "You told me your marriage was already over." "I know," he said. "You said you and Norah were basically living separate lives." "I said that," Ethan admitted. "You said she only cared about the baby and the family." Madison pressed. Ethan closed his eyes briefly. Every sentence sounded uglier now. "I made my marriage sound worse than it was," he confessed. Madison stared at him. "Why?" she asked. "Because it made what we were doing easier to justify." The honesty surprised both of them. Madison looked toward the window. "So I was just an excuse," she said. "No," Ethan replied. "Then what was I?" she asked. Ethan took a long breath. "You made me feel admired," he told her. Her eyes returned to his. "At home, I felt like I was always disappointing someone. Norah needed me to show up. Lily needed me. My parents needed things." Madison's voice turned bitter. "And I didn't," she stated. "You needed a version of me I liked being," he explained. She went quiet. Ethan continued. "With you, I didn't have to think about whether I was a good husband or father. I could just be successful and wanted." Madison leaned back. "That sounds like love to you," she asked. "No," the answer came quietly. "No, it sounds like escape." Her eyes filled, though she refused to cry. "Do you still love her?" Madison asked. Ethan looked at the table. For weeks, he had avoided saying it because saying it would make everything undeniable. "Yes," he answered. Madison swallowed. "Then what exactly was I supposed to do with all the things you promised me?" she asked. Ethan had no defense. "I don't know," he said. She laughed once painfully. That seems to be your favorite answer. He looked at her. I'm sorry. Madison shook her head. Don't make me the woman who ruined your marriage by herself. I'm not. You were the married one, she told him. I know, Ethan said. I knew Norah was pregnant, Madison admitted. Ethan's jaw tightened. Madison's voice dropped. I knew enough to walk away earlier, and I didn't. For the first time, neither of them tried to escape responsibility. Madison reached into her purse and removed the key to Ethan's Brookline house. She placed it beside his coffee. I thought once she left, we would finally get the life you kept promising, she said. Ethan looked at the key. I thought so too, he replied. But then there was Lily, your parents, the hospital, the baby. She paused, and I realized something I don't like admitting. What? He asked. I wanted the parts of your life that looked good from the outside. Ethan said nothing. Madison continued. The Mercedes, the dinners, the weekends, the way people treated you when you walked into a room. Her voice softened. I didn't picture medication schedules and a teenager who hated me. That's my life, Ethan said. I know, she replied. She pushed the key toward him, and I don't think I want it. The words should have hurt more. Instead, Ethan felt strangely calm. Maybe because for the first time, nobody was pretending. Madison stood up. I did care about you, she said. I know, but caring about someone doesn't erase what we did, Ethan replied. No, she agreed. She picked up her coat. At the door, she stopped. I hope you become the man you kept telling me you were. Then she left. Ethan remained at the table alone. That afternoon, he went to his first therapy session. He told no one. Not Norah, not Lily, not his parents. The therapist asked one question that stayed with him. What did Madison give you that Norah didn't? Ethan answered quickly. Admiration. The therapist nodded. And what did Norah give you? This answer took longer. Reality. And which one did you resent? Ethan had no answer. At the cottage, Norah sat in bed with her Kindle resting beside her and a mug of tea cooling on the nightstand. Her laptop chimed. An email. She opened it. Family Support Coordinator conditional offer. The maternal health nonprofit wanted her part-time after maternity leave. Flexible schedule. Norah read the email twice, then once more. Her eyes filled, not because the job would make her rich, but because it belonged to her. She accepted. That evening, Ethan visited Walter. He checked the medication schedule himself. He called Diane afterward to confirm her cardiology appointment. No one asked him to. Lily texted, you remembered Grandpa's appointment. Ethan smiled faintly. Yeah. A minute later, she texted, good. That single word felt like progress. Near midnight, Norah woke with a deep pressure low in her abdomen. She waited. Another contraction came, then another. She picked up her phone and started the timer, 5 minutes apart, stronger than before. She looked at the hospital bag beside the door. This time she knew Ben was coming. And somewhere across Boston, Ethan was about to learn whether changing too late could still mean showing up when it mattered most. When the hospital asked Norah who she wanted beside her during the birth, the answer would break Ethan in a way no divorce paper ever could. At 3:26 in the morning, Norah arrived at Massachusetts General Hospital with contractions 5 minutes apart. This time, no one told her they might stop. A nurse checked her, looked at the monitor, then smiled gently. You're having this baby, she said. Norah closed her eyes. Diane stood beside the bed, one hand on her shoulder. Ben picked his own schedule, Diane said. Norah laughed once. But another contraction immediately took the sound away. Within the hour, Ethan arrived. He had changed so quickly that his shirt was buttoned wrong beneath his coat. He stopped outside the room. Diane stepped into the hallway. She's progressing, Diane said. Is Ben okay so far, Ethan asked. Diane nodded. Ethan exhaled. Can I go in, he asked. Diane hesitated. The nurse asked Norah who she wants in the delivery room, she explained. Ethan looked at her. And hospital policy allows 2 support people. His face changed slightly. Okay, he said. She chose me, Diane told him. Ethan nodded. And Lily, Diane added. For several seconds, Ethan said nothing. Diane watched the answer settle inside him. Not anger, not entitlement. Pain, Lily, he asked. She asked for Lily, Diane confirmed. Ethan looked through the small glass window in the door. Inside, Norah was breathing through another contraction while Lily stood beside her bed. His 16-year-old daughter looked terrified, but she was there. Ethan lowered his voice. Does Lily want to do this? He asked. Diane nodded. She said Norah stayed with her every time she was scared. Ethan looked down. That sentence hit harder than any accusation Norah could have made. He had spent years assuming he was the center of his daughter's safety. Now he understood how many frightened nights Norah had quietly filled when he was working late, traveling, or simply unavailable. The door opened. Lily stepped into the hallway. "Dad," she said. "Hey," he replied. She looked pale. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so. You don't have to stay in there if it's too much," Ethan told her. Lily shook her head. "I want to." Ethan nodded. Then Lily said softly, "She was there every time I was scared." "I know," Ethan said. "No, Dad." Her eyes filled. "I don't think you did." Ethan swallowed. "You're right." Lily looked surprised by the answer. He stepped closer. "Take care of her," he told his daughter. Lily nodded and went back inside. Ethan sat in the hallway. For once, he didn't try to negotiate his way into a room where he had not been invited. Inside, labor became harder. Norah gripped Diane's hand while Lily stood near her shoulder. Hours passed. The contractions came closer. Norah's blood pressure climbed again. The obstetrician watched the numbers carefully. "If this keeps rising, we may need to move faster." Norah nodded through tears. "I understand," she said. Then another contraction hit. She cried out. "I can't do this," Norah said. Lily leaned closer. "Yes, you can." Norah shook her head. "I'm too tired." Lily's voice trembled. "You told me something when I had that panic attack last year." Norah looked at her. "You said I didn't have to survive the whole night," Lily told her. "I only had to survive the next minute." Norah stared at her. Lily squeezed her hand. "So just do the next minute," Lily said. Norah broke. Not from pain. From hearing her own kindness return when she needed it most. She pulled Lily closer and kissed her forehead. Then she breathed. 1 minute, then another. Outside, Ethan heard movement behind the doors. A nurse hurried past him. His stomach dropped. He stood up. "What's happening?" he asked. "We're monitoring the baby closely," she said. "What does that mean?" he pressed. "She's okay. Please stay here." Ethan sat again, helpless. His phone remained silent in his hand. No Madison, no calls, no boardroom. Nothing mattered. Nearly 2 hours later, a newborn cry came through the door. Ethan froze, then he covered his mouth. His son, Ben. He bent forward, elbows on his knees, and began to cry. Not quietly, not carefully. He cried like a man who had spent weeks discovering how close he had come to losing everything that mattered. Diane came out first. "He's healthy," she said. Ethan stood immediately. "And Norah?" he asked. "Tired, but okay," Diane told him. He closed his eyes. "Thank God." Diane touched his arm. She said, "You can come in now." Ethan entered slowly. Norah looked exhausted. Her hair was damp against her forehead. Lily was sitting beside her, crying and smiling at the same time. In Norah's arms was a tiny baby wrapped in a blue hospital blanket. Ethan stopped several feet away. For once, he didn't assume he had the right to come closer. Norah looked at him. "Do you want to meet your son?" she asked. His face collapsed. "Yes." She held Ben toward him. Ethan took the baby carefully. Benjamin Bennett Caldwell, his son. Ben opened his eyes for 1 second, then closed them again. Ethan stared down at him. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Norah heard him. "For what?" she asked. "For almost becoming someone he would have to forgive someday," Ethan replied. Norah looked at him for a long moment. "You have time not to," she told him. Ethan's eyes filled again. "Thank you for letting me be here," he said. "You're his father," she replied. She paused. "I was never going to take that from you." That kindness hurt more than punishment ever could. Because Ethan finally understood the difference between Norah and himself. When he had been hurt, he escaped. When Norah had been hurt, she still protected the people who depended on her. Lily moved beside the bed. "He has your ears, Dad," she said. Ethan laughed through tears. For one brief moment, the four of them were simply a family welcoming a child. But Ethan knew the truth. Ben's birth hadn't repaired his marriage. It had only shown him what kind of man he still had the chance to become. When the divorce papers finally appeared, Ethan would learn that becoming better didn't mean Norah owed him another chance. For the first time, Ethan was ready to change without asking what he would get in return. But Norah was about to make the one decision he could no longer talk her out of. 6 weeks after Ben was born, Ethan learned that change looked less dramatic than regret. There were no grand speeches. There were no luxury gifts. There were no late-night promises. Change looked like waking up at 2:13 in the morning because his son wouldn't stop crying. It looked like standing in the kitchen of the Brookline house with a bottle warmer humming beside him while Ben screamed against his chest. Norah had agreed to short daytime visits first, then longer visits. Finally, one Saturday, she allowed Ethan to keep Ben for nearly 6 hours. It was the longest Ethan had ever been alone with him. Everything went wrong. Ben refused the bottle. Then he spit up across Ethan's sweater. Then he cried so hard that Ethan checked his temperature twice. His first instinct was to call Norah. He even opened her contact. Then he stopped. For years, Norah had been his emergency solution. He was trying to stop making her responsible for every moment he felt unprepared. Ethan opened the notes from Ben's pediatrician. Diaper, temperature, feeding, burping, overstimulation. He worked through each possibility. Finally, he placed Ben against his chest and slowly walked through the dark living room. The dishwasher was running in the kitchen. Something about the steady sound made Ben quiet. Within minutes, the baby fell asleep. Ethan looked down at the tiny face pressed against him. He didn't move. His arms started aching. His coffee went cold. He stayed exactly where he was. And then, without warning, Ethan cried. No one saw it. There was no audience. There was no one to forgive him because of it. He simply held his son and understood how many ordinary nights Norah had spent caring for people, while he convinced himself that earning money was enough. Across town, Norah was meeting with her attorney. A legal pad rested beside her laptop. The separation agreement had become a divorce agreement. The word still hurt. Not because she doubted the decision, but because signing it would close a chapter she had once expected to last forever. Her attorney reviewed the terms carefully. The Brookline house would remain Ethan's. Norah would receive her fair share of marital assets, continued health coverage through the transition, child support, and a detailed parenting schedule. There was no hidden fortune. There was no company suddenly transferred into Norah's name. There was no attempt to destroy Ethan financially. Norah wanted stability, nothing more. When Ethan arrived to sign 2 days later, he wore a navy suit. He carried the same Mont Blanc pen he had used during their wedding paperwork years earlier. He noticed it only after sitting down. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Norah looked rested, but different. Stronger somehow. Not because she had become colder, but because she no longer looked as though she were waiting for his mood to determine hers. The attorney explained the final terms. Ethan barely heard them. His eyes kept returning to Norah's signature line. Finally, he asked for a moment alone with her. The attorney stepped outside. Silence filled the conference room. Ethan looked at the documents. "Is this really what you want?" he asked. "No, I want peace," she said. "We could still try," he told her. Her expression softened. "That's what makes this harder," she replied. Hope flashed across his face. Norah continued. "You are changing." "I am," he said. "I know," she replied. "Then why does it have to end?" he asked. She looked down at her hands. "Because change does not erase what happened," she told him. Ethan swallowed. "I'm not asking you to forget." "No," she said. "But part of you is still hoping that if you do enough things right, I will give you the marriage back." He said nothing. That silence was an answer. Norah leaned forward. "You are going to therapy," she told him. "You are showing up for Lily. You know your father's medications. You know when your mother's next appointment is. You can care for Ben without calling me every 20 minutes. A sad smile crossed Ethan's face. "I'm getting better," he said. "Yes," she agreed. "Doesn't that matter?" he asked. "It matters enormously," Norah said. Her eyes filled. "But becoming the man you should have been does not create a debt I have to repay with another chance." The words landed without cruelty. That made them harder to resist. Ethan looked away. For several seconds, he struggled to speak. "I thought if I fixed enough things, maybe someday you'd look at me the way you used to." Norah's voice broke slightly. "I don't want you fixing things for me anymore." "Then for who?" he asked. "For yourself," she paused. "For Lily." Another pause. "For Ben." Ethan closed his eyes. That was the moment something inside him finally surrendered. Not his love for Norah. His belief that love entitled him to another opportunity. He picked up the pen. His hand trembled. He signed, then pushed the papers toward Norah. She signed too. 6 years of marriage ended in less than 30 seconds. Ethan stared at their names. "I'm sorry it took losing you to understand what you were carrying," he said. Norah looked at him. "I hope someday it stops being about losing me." He raised his eyes. "And starts being about becoming someone Ben can respect," she added. Ethan nodded. Outside the building, Norah walked toward her Volvo. Ethan remained on the sidewalk. He wanted to call after her. Instead, he let her leave. That evening, he received an email from Madison. She had accepted a position in Chicago. She wrote only one sentence about Norah. "I knew enough to leave sooner, and I didn't." Ethan closed the email. Across Boston, Norah opened another message. Her new employee identification was ready. Family Support Coordinator. For the first time in years, something in her life carried only her name, her work, and her decision. She smiled. Then Ben began crying from the next room. Norah stood and went to him. Not as a woman abandoned, not as Ethan Caldwell's former wife, as herself. Just when Norah believed the hardest chapter was finally behind her, a quiet encounter outside the hospital would prove that healing didn't mean closing her heart forever. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, Norah stood inside a small office overlooking Charles River traffic. She was staring at the new identification badge clipped to her blouse. Natalie Caldwell, Family Support Coordinator. The title was simple. There was no executive suite, no private driver, and no six-figure bonus. Her desk held a laptop, a half-finished coffee, a framed photograph of Ben, and a Kindle she kept telling herself she would read during lunch. She rarely had time, and strangely, Norah had never felt more successful. That morning, a 26-year-old pregnant woman named Emily sat across from her. Emily's husband had left 2 weeks earlier. She was 37 weeks pregnant, working part-time, and terrified she wouldn't be able to afford childcare. "I don't know how people do this alone," Emily whispered. Norah recognized the look immediately. It wasn't weakness, it was overwhelm. It was the expression of someone staring at an entire future all at once. Norah leaned forward. "You don't have to solve the next 5 years today," she told her. Emily wiped her eyes. "I'm scared," she said. "I know," Norah replied. "Everyone keeps telling me I'm strong," Emily said. Norah paused. Then she said the words she wished someone had told her months earlier. "You don't have to be strong all the time, and you don't have to do this alone. Those are different things." Emily started crying. Norah handed her tissues, then walked her through real options. Housing assistance, insurance, childcare programs, counseling, legal resources. No empty promises, no miracle billionaire. Just doors that could actually open. When Emily left, Norah sat quietly for a moment. She realized something. Her pain had not become valuable because it made her tougher. It became valuable because she could now recognize fear in someone else without judging it. That evening, Norah returned to the townhouse she had recently rented near Cambridge. The place was much smaller than the Brookline house, but it felt lived in. Caleb was standing on a ladder trying to install shelves while complaining about the wall anchors. Lily sat cross-legged on the rug beside Ben. She was shaking a stuffed elephant until he laughed. Diane had brought dinner. Rebecca arrived 10 minutes later carrying a diaper bag Lily had forgotten at her house. For a moment, Norah stood in the doorway and watched them. Her former mother-in-law, her husband's first wife, her stepdaughter, her brother, her son. It should have looked complicated. Instead, it looked like family. Rebecca noticed her. "Long day?" she asked. "Very," Norah said. Rebecca handed Norah a container. "Diane says you haven't been eating enough." From the kitchen, Diane called out, "Because she hasn't." Norah laughed. Nobody mentioned Ethan. Not because he had disappeared, but because he no longer had to be the center of every relationship. He was learning too. The following Tuesday, Ethan canceled a morning meeting so he could attend Ben's pediatric appointment. Months earlier, he would have asked Norah to send him the notes. Now, he arrived 5 minutes early with the diaper bag correctly packed. The pediatrician checked Ben's growth and smiled. "He's doing great." Ethan visibly relaxed. Norah noticed. Afterward, they stood beside the elevators. "You remembered the extra bottle," she said. He smiled. "I've been trained by Ben brutally," he replied. For a moment, they laughed like they used to. Then the elevator arrived. Neither mistook the moment for reconciliation. That was new, too. 2 days later, Norah left work carrying her laptop and nearly collided with a man outside the hospital cafe. Coffee splashed onto his sleeve. "Oh my God, I'm sorry," Norah said. He looked down at the stain. "Well, I was wondering whether this shirt needed personality," he joked. Norah laughed despite herself. He was tall, dark-haired, and wearing navy scrubs beneath a winter coat. The badge clipped to his pocket read Owen Parker, MD, Pediatrics. I'll replace the coffee, Norah said. Only if you let me buy yours, he replied. That doesn't sound like me replacing anything, she told him. Then I'm clearly bad at negotiations, he said. The conversation lasted 7 minutes. There was nothing dramatic. There was no instant attraction that erased her past. There was no luxury car waiting outside. There was no powerful stranger promising to fix her life. Just coffee. Owen asked what she did at the hospital. Norah told him. He listened. Actually listened. When her phone buzzed because Caleb was asking what time she would be home, Owen didn't complain about being interrupted. He simply stepped back. You should go, he said. Norah nodded. Then he said, would you want to have coffee sometime when neither of us is wearing it? She smiled. For a second, fear rose automatically. Not fear of Owen. Fear of trusting her own judgment again. I'm not really dating, she told him. Owen nodded. Then coffee can just be coffee. No pressure, no wounded ego, no attempt to convince her. Norah looked at him differently. Okay, she said. The following Saturday, Ethan arrived at the townhouse to return Ben after an afternoon visit. Norah opened the door. Ben was asleep in his car seat. He finally passed out, Ethan whispered. What worked? Norah asked. The dishwasher, he said. Norah laughed. I told you, she replied. I thought you were joking, he admitted. He carefully set the carrier down. From inside the kitchen, Owen's voice called out, Norah, where do you keep the cinnamon? Ethan froze for half a second. Norah noticed. So did he. But instead of asking who Owen was, Ethan simply looked down at Ben, then back at Norah. I'll see you Tuesday, he said. You will, she replied. He walked toward his Mercedes. His chest hurt, but he didn't turn around. He didn't demand an explanation. He didn't ask Lily questions later. For the first time, Ethan understood that Norah's future was no longer something he had the right to manage. Sitting behind the wheel, he looked back at the townhouse. Warm light filled the windows. Lily was inside. Diane's casserole dish sat near the doorway. Ben was asleep upstairs. Someone was laughing in the kitchen. Ethan had once believed Norah could never build a life without him. Now he saw the truth. She hadn't rebuilt her life by becoming richer, colder, or more powerful. She had rebuilt it by making room only for people who showed up. And the most painful part was that Ethan was finally learning how to do that after losing the right to stand beside her. 1 year after the night, Norah whispered, "Go back to her." Ethan asked if she would meet him at a small cafe near Boston Public Garden. No lawyers, no therapists, no family, just the two of them. Norah almost said no. Then Ethan added one sentence. "There's something I should have given back a long time ago." So she agreed. It was a cold Saturday afternoon. Norah arrived wearing a camel coat. Her hair was pulled loosely behind her shoulders. Ethan was already seated near the window with 2 coffees on the table. He stood when she approached. "Thanks for coming," he said. Norah sat across from him. "You said you had something," she mentioned. Ethan nodded. For a moment, he looked nervous in a way she had rarely seen during their marriage. Then he reached into his coat pocket. A small velvet box appeared in his hand. Norah recognized it immediately. Her chest tightened. Ethan opened it. Inside was her wedding ring. It was the same ring she had removed in their kitchen a year earlier. Norah looked at him. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Not what you think," he replied. He placed the box between them. "I kept it because part of me thought that if I changed enough, someday I could give it back to you." Norah said nothing. Ethan looked down. "That was still selfish," he admitted. Her expression softened slightly. He continued, "I was treating therapy like proof, showing up for Lily like proof, taking care of Dad, learning Ben's routine. Every decent thing I did, some part of me was still keeping score." His voice grew quieter, like if I collected enough evidence that I had changed, you would owe me another chance. Norah felt tears rise. "And now?" she asked. "Now I understand you don't." The cafe sounds seemed to fade around them. Ethan pushed the ring toward her. "I want you to have it because it belongs to your history too, not because I want you to wear it again." Norah touched the edge of the box, but didn't pick it up. Ethan took a breath. "I also owe you an apology I should have given correctly a long time ago." "You've apologized before," she said. "I know," he replied. He looked directly at her. "But I kept saying I was sorry for hurting you. That was too easy," he said. Norah waited. "I'm sorry I lied to you," he told her. His voice trembled. I'm sorry I made you question your instincts when you already knew something was wrong. Norah looked down. I'm sorry I told myself you had become boring when what really happened was that you were exhausted from carrying our family. A tear slipped down Norah's cheek. Ethan continued. I'm sorry Lily saw those messages and spent months believing it was her job to protect our marriage. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry I used your pregnancy as an excuse to resent responsibility. Norah wiped her cheek. And Madison, Ethan said. I'm sorry I made her sound like the whole problem, because it let me avoid admitting that I was the married man, making promises to two women. Norah looked at him for a long time. Ethan's eyes filled. And I'm sorry I noticed everything you did, only after you stopped doing it. That one broke her. Norah looked toward the park outside the window, blinking through tears. For several seconds, neither spoke. Finally, she whispered, Do you know what hurt the most? Ethan shook his head. It wasn't Madison, she told him. His face changed. It was how long I spent wondering if you were right about me, she said. I wondered if I had become needy, boring, difficult. She pressed her lips together. I wondered if being pregnant had made me impossible to love. Ethan's face collapsed. You were never impossible to love, he said. Norah looked back at him. I know that now, she replied. The words landed gently, but Ethan understood their meaning. She no longer needed him to convince her. That was healing. He nodded through tears. I'm glad, he said. Norah finally picked up the ring. She turned it between her fingers. I'm going to keep it, she told him. Hope didn't appear in Ethan's face. He had learned better. For Ben, he asked. For me too, she answered. She closed the box. There were good years, she said. Yes, Ethan agreed. I don't want to pretend they didn't exist just because they ended badly, she told him. Ethan nodded. That seems fair, he said. They sat quietly for another minute. Then Ethan asked, Are you happy? Norah thought carefully. I'm becoming peaceful, she answered. A sad smile crossed his face. That sounds better, he told her. It is, she replied. They stood outside the cafe. The wind moved through the bare trees of Boston Public Garden. Ethan hesitated. Then Norah stepped forward and hugged him. Not like a wife. Not like a woman considering reconciliation. Like someone releasing the last piece of anger she no longer wanted to carry. Ethan held her briefly. When they separated, his eyes were wet. Goodbye, Norah, he said. She gave him a small smile. Not goodbye, we still have Ben. He laughed softly. Right. They walked in opposite directions. That evening, Norah placed the wedding ring inside a drawer beside Ben's hospital bracelet. She didn't throw it away. She didn't put it back on. She simply placed the past where it belonged. Her phone buzzed. It was Owen. Coffee Saturday, he asked. Norah stared at the message. Months earlier, fear would have answered first. This time, she smiled. Yes, she replied. Across town, Ethan sat beside Walter at the assisted living residence. Walter asked, Did you ask her to come back? No, Ethan said. Walter nodded. Good. Ethan almost laughed. That's all you have to say, he asked. Walter looked at him. If she ever chooses you again, it should be a gift, never a debt. Ethan looked toward the window. For the first time, he could hear those words without hoping for another ending. He had lost his marriage, but he had finally stopped trying to turn his regret into Norah's responsibility. 18 months later, one family dinner would prove that Norah hadn't destroyed a family by walking away. She had forced everyone inside it to finally learn how to love without making one woman carry the entire weight. 18 months later, Ben Caldwell stood in the middle of Norah's townhouse living room. He was wearing one sock and holding a wooden block in each hand. He had learned 3 new words that week: mama, more, and no. He used the last one most often. Norah sat on the rug beside him, laughing as he tried to stack the blocks and knock them over again. From the kitchen came the smell of pancakes. Owen leaned around the doorway. Your son has rejected blueberries, he said. He gets that from Ethan, Norah replied. I thought Ethan liked blueberries, Owen asked. He does. He just likes disagreeing with people more, Norah told him. Owen smiled. Their relationship had grown slowly. Coffee became lunch. Lunch became walks. Walks became dinners, where Norah didn't feel pressure to explain every fear left behind by her marriage. Owen never tried to rescue her. That was exactly why she trusted him. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. It was Ethan. Ben's pediatric appointment confirmed for Tuesday. I moved the portfolio meeting. I'll take him unless you want to come too. Norah read it twice. Not because the message was extraordinary, because once it would have been. She typed, "I'll meet you there." Then she put the phone down. That evening, the entire family gathered at a restaurant near Boston Harbor. Lily had received her college acceptance letter. She was going to Boston University in the fall. Rebecca arrived first. Diane and Walter came together. Walter was moving carefully with his cane. Caleb drove down from Vermont. Owen carried Ben's diaper bag. Ethan arrived alone. A year earlier, the arrangement might have felt impossible. Now everyone simply found a chair. Norah sat between Owen and Diane. Rebecca sat beside Lily. Ethan sat across from them. Nobody needed to pretend the past hadn't happened. They had simply stopped allowing it to control every room. Dinner was loud. Walter complained that the restaurant charged too much for salmon. Caleb argued that nobody should pay $20 for mashed potatoes. Diane told both men to stop embarrassing Lily. Ben threw a dinner roll. Everyone laughed. Then Lily stood up. She held her water glass with both hands. "I know this isn't a wedding, so nobody panic," she said. Rebecca laughed. Ethan smiled. Lily looked around the table. "I just wanted to say thank you." Her voice became less playful. "When I was younger, I thought a family stayed together because nobody left." Nora's eyes immediately filled. Lily continued. "Then I learned people can live in the same house and still leave each other in 100 different ways." Ethan lowered his eyes. "And sometimes somebody has to walk away before everyone starts telling the truth." The table went quiet. Lily looked at Rebecca first. "Mom, thank you for never making me choose between homes." Rebecca covered her mouth. Then Lily looked at Ethan. "Dad, thank you for finally learning that showing up is more important than saying you will." Ethan nodded, tears already in his eyes. Lily turned Norah. Her voice broke. "And Norah, thank you for never making me earn a place in your life." Norah began crying. Lily crossed the space between them. Norah stood and hugged her. For a few seconds, Lily was 16 again, terrified that Norah might leave her too. Only now she knew better. Family didn't always mean staying married. Sometimes family meant refusing to make love conditional. After dinner, everyone slowly moved toward the exit. Diane helped Walter with his coat. Rebecca took photos of Lily. Caleb tried to convince Ben that throwing food was not a personality. Owen waited beside Norah. Ethan stood near the restaurant windows overlooking the harbor. When Norah passed him, he spoke. "Can I ask you something?" he asked. She stopped. "Sure," she said. He smiled faintly. "Do you remember what you said that night?" he asked. Norah knew immediately. "Go back to her," she said. Ethan nodded. "I thought you were giving up," he told her. Norah looked toward the harbor lights. "I was," she replied. He seemed surprised. She turned back. "I was giving up on convincing someone to value me." Ethan's smile disappeared, not from anger, but from understanding. "You were right," he said. "I wasn't trying to be right," she replied. That hurt more because everything Norah had done had never been about winning. Ethan looked through the glass at the family behind them. Lily laughing with Rebecca, Diane adjusting Walter's scarf, Owen holding Ben, Norah standing peacefully beside them. "I thought when you left you were breaking the family," Ethan said. Norah followed his gaze. "I thought that too," she admitted. "And now?" he asked. She smiled. "I think we just stopped pretending the old version was the only one that counted." Ethan nodded slowly. Then Ben called from across the room, "Dad." Ethan turned immediately. Ben reached toward him. Ethan walked over and lifted his son into his arms. Norah watched. There had been a time when seeing Ethan become the father she needed would have broken her heart. Now it healed something instead. He hadn't become better in time to save their marriage, but he had become better in time to save his relationship with his children. That mattered. Later that night, Norah returned home. Owen put away the leftovers while Ben played on the rug. An unopened Amazon box sat near the front door. Her Kindle rested beside a cup of tea. Nothing about the scene looked extraordinary. There was no mansion, no gala, no revenge, just peace. Norah sat beside her son. Ben handed her a wooden block. She placed it on top of another. For years, Norah had believed love meant holding everything together, no matter how much it hurt. Now she knew better. Love was not one person carrying everyone else. Love was people learning to carry their own weight and still reaching for each other when it mattered. Across Boston, Ethan returned to the Brookline house. It was quieter than Norah's townhouse, but no longer empty. There were toys for Ben, photos of Lily, Walter's appointment schedule on the refrigerator, and Diane's cardiology reminder on his phone. Things Ethan now remembered without being told. He placed his keys beside Norah's old wedding ring box, which he had finally stopped keeping there months earlier. Then he smiled at a photo of his children. He had lost his wife, but he had finally learned how not to lose himself as a father, and Norah had gained something even more important than revenge. She had gained a life in which love no longer required her to disappear inside everyone else's needs. Her quiet goodbye had shattered Ethan. But it also became the first honest step toward healing every person their broken marriage had touched.